Get ready for the Ocelli effect.
I'm a big fan of the show.
Chuck Ocelli, and he's been known for many years as a blind PFK researcher specializing in intelligence agency involvement in multiple assassination, propaganda, and other global criminal operations in the 20th and 21st centuries.
Your listeners are extremely fortunate to have you.
And now, the most underrated voice in all media.
Chuck Ocelli!
The 17th day of June 2019, allegedly, according to that thing we call a calendar, and this indeed is the Ocelli Effect, originating from the facilities of Ocelli.com, but heard in a variety of other places. You know, there's a couple of terrestrial radio outlets that catch us now. There are many individuals that catch us on their radio applications, their Fondle Slabs of choice being the place they do that, and also the podcast version later on, further on down the stream, and all that good stuff. No matter how you're coming to us, welcome to this particular broadcast week. And it is good to start out the week, this time with Jordan Maxwell. Now, if you don't know who Jordan Maxwell is, I'm not sure how you tied your shoes today or got to my show. So, greetings, and yes, indeed, if you go to jordanmaxwellshow.com. Okay, now, I did say that very plainly, but let's say it again, and there will be a link in the podcast. jordanmaxwellshow.com is the only website that is Jordan Maxwell's. A lot of other places have his name. A lot of other places use his name. A lot of other places have interviews with him and feature him right at the top of their websites and all that good stuff. But there's only one website that is actually Jordan Maxwell's. That is jordanmaxwellshow.com. Now, unique things over there, too. The Jordan Maxwell Research Society, which there is a link to immediately, and I'll give you a direct link to go and join the Research Society, which has a one-time fee. You get in there and you get into a deep dive of the interconnective world of things that Jordan Maxwell has been teaching people about for more than half a century. Yes, I didn't stutter when I said all of that. Amazing. Anyway, the thing is, you can do that. Join the Research Society. You can take a look at the public page there at jordanmaxwellshow.com. No problem, sure. But also you can make a contribution to Jordan, which goes directly to him. Helps him out. And, those of us that tell the truth don't get paid well. So guess what? You help Jordan out. He is definitely appreciative, and you are directly supporting the individual that supports your right to know certain things, to decode certain things, to show you a great many details about the way governments work, the way banks work, the way the entire world indeed does work. And, hey, how about religion? Another deep dive that you can get into with Jordan. Is it separate subjects? Kind of, sort of, but not really. jordanmaxwellshow.com is the place to go to because it is the only website that is Jordan Maxwell's. Almost sounds like I'm reading that, Jordan, doesn't it? Jordan? Whoops. Maybe we have Jordan on mute somehow?
No, I'm here.
Okay. Almost sounded like I was reading that, doesn't it?
Yeah, it certainly does. I wouldn't be a bit surprised if you were.
But unfortunately, I don't physically have the capability to read that smoothly, so that has to go from memory. But nothing I said was untrue, right?
No, it was all very accurate, and that is important for people to remember. I have one website called Jordan Maxwell Show. There are other websites out there with my name on it, but they don't belong to me.
That's right.
Other people are using my name to make money off of me and to trick people into believing it's my website. It's not my website. I only have one. It's called jordanmaxwellshow.com.
That's it. And as I said, we'll give you the links directly along with that. And it's the only place that's yours. I also mentioned that they could make a donation over there, which I said you would also appreciate. And I know that's a fact. So, hey, one thing I did forget to mention in that little thing that sounded like I was reading, though, is that you also appreciate feedback over there. Email, you may not be the fastest guy writing back to people, but you appreciate knowing that you've reached people and that they've learned something. It is a good thing to do as well. So, I advise you to do all of the above, in fact. Join the Research Society, explore the website, definitely contact Jordan, ask him questions, tell him what you think of the presentations you've heard here or elsewhere. I don't care. It doesn't matter. It's not about my show. The thing is, just how about letting him know you appreciate him and also make a donation. Do all the above. If you have the wherewithal to do so, I suggest you do all of the above. So there you go. We have done a long series on religion, and we have done now a couple of episodes devoted to astrotheology. Now, I got to tell you, this is one of those subjects where I think I know it. And, you know, I go and examine it again. I go and take a look at some of the different bits of symbolism that should have been right in front of my face and obvious, and I don't always necessarily know what it is I know and what it is I don't know. So it's really great to check back in on this. Now, we've talked to you so far a lot about the sun, and obviously how this relates to the, you know, SUN and SON. They are the same thing. We've talked to you about the order of things regarding Virgo the Virgin, and exactly why it is 3 wise men precede the birth of said sun, you know, and how these things play out in the heavens, because as above, so below, and all that. You referenced certain scriptures, and we've gone there. And one might wonder, Jordan, I know that you've probably heard this a million times, but where do you go from the basics of this to understand? And again, as you've said many times, this is not about telling people that what they've been learning is wrong, but this is about expanding their knowledge about a truth which has not been ever fully told, you know, in a public sense by the majority of people that discuss the New Testament, certainly. And this is, again, not undermining anybody's Christianity here. It's about expanding your knowledge and getting you to understand that maybe these stories, which have always seemed to repeat themselves one way or another, and also are preserved in that New Testament, that maybe there is a universal truth which is much greater once you get beyond the cartoon version of the story. Is anything I'm saying here off, out of line, Jordan, so far?
No. As a matter of fact, that's precisely what I'm doing. I want people to understand I am not criticizing any religion or anyone's faith. My mother was a Christian. My father was a Christian. My family were Christian. So I am not criticizing anybody's faith. What I am trying to do is just to educate people as to where our belief systems have come from, and then to apply. It's easier to apply the wisdom in the scriptures if you understand what the scriptures are saying. If you understand what the story is to begin with, then it all begins to make sense. Because when you read in the Bible about how Jesus had a mother who was a virgin, that doesn't make any sense to anyone. But if you understand, we're talking about Jesus being God's son, the light of the world. The scripture says Jesus is the light of the world. Well, of course, the sun, S-U-N, is the light of this world. And so I'm trying to basically hold the whole thing up to the light, the whole story up to the light of modern day understanding, and see where the story of Christianity actually came from and what it actually is supposed to be doing to help you educate yourself spiritually as to the world you live in. And so if you understand that the story of Jesus is the story of God's Son, the light of the world, it's talking about the sun as a most important symbol in mankind's life on the earth. Nothing has more prevailed on the earth in the minds of men as a symbol than the sun. It is the basis for our life. Without the sun, there would be no life, no light, there would be no life at all. The earth would have frozen over a long time ago, and there would be no life on the earth, period. But because we have something we refer to as the sun, S-U-N, then once you begin to see that Christianity is based on the worship of the sun. And so we ask the question, who owns the sun? Well, nobody on the earth can say that they own the sun. Well, basically, who would you say owned the sun? Well, theologically, I guess you could say that God owns the sun. So therefore, it's God's Son, the light of the world. Of course, the sun is the light of the world. And of course, the sun obviously must belong to God because it doesn't belong to anybody on the earth, so it would be God's Son. So we refer to Jesus as the Son of God, or God's Son, the light of the world. And so what we're talking about in Christianity is quite simply behind the most important symbol mankind has ever come up with. And that is the sun as it arises in the morning. We call it a risen sun. And so we say he is risen. Of course it rises. Every morning about 5:30, God's sun rises. And where he rises, where does he go? Into heaven. So we're told that when you die, if you're being good in your life, you'll die and you'll go into heaven to be with God's Son. No, you won't go into heaven to be with the Son. You will go into your tomb. It will not be in heaven. And so I'm just trying to explain where these ideas have come from and what we believe and where the basis for these beliefs, because to know the truth, it will set you free. And for the first time, when you finally see what I am talking about and you finally get it, most people don't get it. But if you finally see what I'm talking about and it finally dawns on you, that's what the sun will do. People say, well, oh, I see what you mean. What do you mean you see what I mean? Well, because it just dawned on me, meaning the light of wisdom finally shines in my head, and now I finally see what you're saying. So now I'm illuminated. At least now I understand what the scriptures are talking about. It's talking about the oldest story in the whole world that mankind has ever known. And this is why the Bible is called the greatest story ever told. It is the greatest story ever told, but why? Because it's the oldest story that's ever been told. And the oldest story, of course, is the war in heaven between light and darkness. You can go back as far back as you wish to go, hundreds of thousands of years ago, tens of thousands, millions of years, it doesn't matter. You go back into history as far as your mind can let you understand. Go back into history. There's always been a war going on in heaven between God's Son, the light of the world, and his evil brother Set, S-E-T, in Egypt. The evil brother was also equal to God's Son, but he was evil. And so the evil son was called Set. Why? Because he became dark. He was known as the Prince of Darkness. Right. The Prince of Darkness was Set. Why? Because the Egyptians realized it got dark at sunset. So the sun was God's only son, and since we only have one son, we don't have six of them, we only have one son. So therefore Jesus is the only begotten Son of God. He's the only begotten, meaning we only have one son, and thank God for that, because at least we got one son. And if that sun ever goes out, then we're dead. If it ever shuts off, we're dead forever, because the sun it shares its energy with the whole of our solar system. All the planets get the energy from the sun. And we are very close to it, so we get a lot of energy from the sun. And that energy helps us to grow plants, to keep our homes warm, to keep our countries warm, to feed us with plants that get their energy from the sun. And so the ancient Egyptians said that the sun was pure energy. That's all it is just a one big ball of energy. And energy is life. And energy is life. Therefore, God's Son is giving his energy to the whole solar system. All the planets and all the life forms that may be in our solar system are receiving light from the sun that belongs to God. So it's God's Son, and the energy is life. So God's Son is giving his life so that you might live.
Well,
He's dying.
Let me ask you a hard question, because, if you notice in the equations here that you're talking about, one must recognize that there is a time of darkness which balances out light. There is a time of life, and then death is the answer to life, right? And there's always these concepts of, well, like you said, when you die, or when the sun falls, it sets and falls to darkness, right? It rises again and all that, and the concept of going to heaven after death. All of this comes into play too, because, well, after all, the heaven is not the, cloudy place with angels playing harps that they show you in the cartoons, right? It's supposed to be this other realm, and it's definitely not here. Yet there's this idea of lying in your tomb and maybe the resurrection, through him you are resurrected. I mean, there's a lot of confusion here when you have to face the other side of the equation.
Yep.
Right? So,
of course,
what does astrotheology explain about death, essentially?
Well, it just basically, astrotheology is the most ancient understanding that mankind has ever come up with. Because I have said in my book that I wrote, and some articles I've written, that in the ancient prehistoric and ancient world, mankind realized that the sun was its savior. The savior of the human race was the sun. And thank God. Why? Because the sun is risen. Each morning he is risen. And so he's the risen savior of our planet and our and life on the earth. Because if the sun doesn't rise, we're in serious trouble. Mm-hmm. And so you begin to look at the whole story of Christianity and understand it as a metaphor, as a symbolic story of what happens to the sun. Mm-hmm. Whatever Jesus said, that's what the sun of enlightenment would say to a situation. What would something that is pure illuminations, pure knowledge, what would the pure knowledge say about a situation? Well, give it a situation and then read what Jesus said, and that's what the sun would say. And then what happens to the sun? Well, what happened to Jesus? That's what happens to the sun. Mm-hmm. Why? Because the sun brings us light, intellectual, spiritual enlightenment. And on this earth, we know that our world today is crowded with people who don't want you to know the light. They're not interested in you enlightening yourself as to how the world works. They want you to stay in the dark and the ignorant so that they can rip you off and lie to you and play you for a fool and bring you into court and have you go to jail, and all because you are in the dark. You don't understand how the world works. Right. And so that's why Jesus represents the sun. He came to enlighten the world. He came to bring light into the world. That's why the Bible says Jesus is God's son, the light of the world. Of course, intellectual, spiritual enlightenment comes from nothing else but the sun. The sun is the original bringer of light to the world, and it belongs to God. So it's God's son, the light of the world. And so what I'm trying to do is to give you an example of how, when you're reading the New Testament, the things which happened to Jesus is what would naturally happen to the sun as a symbolic metaphor. The things that Jesus said is what an intellectual spiritual knowledge would say about a situation. So when you hear Jesus saying something, that's like the sun who is bringing light into the world. What would the Son of God say? Well, read what he said. So when I read that in the Bible, that Jesus did this and Jesus did that, I understand it means that the sun, being the symbol for life and energy in the world that we live in, here's what happens to God's Son. Here's what happens to him. If he tries to educate and intellectually and spiritually enlighten the world, you're going to go to prison. You're going to be thrown into prison. You're going to hang on a cross, and you're going to make you wish you were dead. And they will probably put you to death. Why? Because the world is not interested in having you tell the people the truth. You can't handle the truth. People, generally speaking, don't want to know the real truth. And that's why today our world is based on lies, deception, misunderstandings, innuendos, all kinds of misunderstandings. Why? Because we're not in the light. So that's why we cannot change the world we live in. As much as we cannot stand the world we're living in, you can't change it. Why? Because you don't have the power to change anything. And why do we humans on the earth have no power to change anything? Because knowledge is power. And the sun gives you knowledge. It gives you wisdom. It gives you understanding. It's spiritual, intellectual enlightenment. But what happens to the spiritual, intellectual enlightenment? Well, it says God's son was nailed to a stake and died on a cross. Well, that's exactly right. That's what happens to people who are trying to educate you. They usually end up dead or in prison, and if they come up with a solution to cure cancer, they will be thrown into prison. Or if they know something that's going on and come out in the public and try and tell you and enlighten you, they'll go to prison and they'll go to jail, and governments will seek to have you arrested and thrown into prison. Why? Because you're talking too much. You talk about things which are enlightening to people, and they don't want that. And so that's why I say look at the Bible story of Jesus as a metaphor. What would happen to the sun, which represents spiritual and intellectual enlightenment? And therefore, again, whatever Jesus said, that's what intelligent life would say. Whatever happened to Jesus, well, that's what would happen to the Son of Light. The Son of Man.
Right. Now, following along with exactly what you just said, right, even though the light is gone at a certain point, it must rise again. And indeed, the sun, the sun, continues to rise. And so long as it does, there is life, there is enlightenment, there is wisdom, there is a time when light is cast upon the world for a time, right? And it's unending, even though it seems to be completely gone, completely defeated by the darkness. Set wins during the night, right?
That's right.
So the sun continues to rise anyway. So even when, see, this is the thing about life after death is almost built into the story, and I think it seems to be represented there as well. I mean, we could also talk about the fact that the 12 guys who are following him around are really the signs, the different houses of the zodiac, and that makes sense when you step back and look at the procession. And yes, indeed, but the idea that it is a never-ending battle of sorts. I mean, as far as our perspective goes, that we have no knowledge of a day when there was no sun.
It is a never-ending battle.
Right. So we have no knowledge of a time when there was no sun permanently, or for even a long period of time, although there are a couple of notations there where it seems like it might have gone away for a little bit longer than a day. But there is always going to be this struggle, seemingly, so long as there is life anyway. Is that not part of what we're also being told in this metaphor?
That's exactly right. In the metaphor, that's what we're being told. God's Son has to die on a cross between north, east, west, and south. On the crosses, on the churches, you will see on many Christian churches, you will see a cross and a circle on the cross. The circle is God's Son who dies on the cross of the zodiac, the cross between north, east, west, and south. And so the 4 points on the compass is north, east, west, and south. And you will see on churches the cross is a crossing between winter, summer, autumn, and spring. And so the sun, S-U-N, dies on a cross. That's why you always see on crosses in churches a round circle in the middle of the cross. That's not a man, that's the sun. And therefore, logically begin to look at the stories you read about Jesus and think about it in relation to what the sun, how the sun operates for us. It's a very interesting story about how the sun light intellectual and spiritual enlightenment. And what happens to the sun? Well, the sun dies eventually. And he leaves, and when the sun dies, he leaves the world in the hands of the Prince of Darkness. And in my thinking, that's probably about where we are right now. The whole world is lying in the power of the Prince of Darkness, because the whole world is in the dark. Where wars and drug addictions and broken marriages and children and kids in jails and prison, and all the raping and the criminality and all the horrible things which are going on in the world. The human race is in the dark. We've lost our way. And therefore we're dying. And therefore the sun represents spiritual enlightenment. And what happens to God's Son, the light of the world? Eventually, the political leaders will nail you to a cross. Rome was a classic example in the story of Jesus. Rome had enough of Jesus, God's Son, enlightening the world. They don't want anybody enlightening the world. They rule by lies, deception, and treason, and all the dirty stuff that goes on in government and banking and government and military. That's how the power works in this world. It's all corrupt and evil. We know that. We understand it. And so that's why governments do not want you talking about things which are in the light. They don't want you enlightening people and telling them what's going on, because that causes problems. And people start hearing this kind of stuff, and now they start getting restless and want to do something about it. That's why you got to give the kids, give the young people who have the energy, give them a lot of sports and alcohol and drugs. Keep the young people on sports, bouncing balls, basketballs, tennis balls, golf balls, bowling balls, ping pong balls. Give the kids and the young people who have a lot of energy, give them a ball. Let them go out and play ball. And we say that in the corporate world. If you're going to work for this corporation, you better play ball. You're going to be a team member or not. If you're not going to be a team member, we don't need you. And so the whole idea is to keep people from learning what's really going on. Keep them in the dark and keep them under the Prince of Darkness. The devil is the Prince of Darkness in the Bible. Prince of Darkness in Egypt was called Set, because the Egyptians realized they got dark at sunset. And so there's always been this war between God's sons, the two sons of God, the one who is trying to bring light into the world and the one who is the Prince of Darkness. The sun comes up at 12 hours of light in which mankind is in control of his life in this world. And then when the sun goes down, mankind's not in control of anything. You need to have electric lights, air conditioners, and police departments and fire departments, because you're not in control of anything, and horrible things happen in the dark. And so the dark has always been synonymous with devils and demons, and nighttime is a time for murder and violence, etc. So it's the works of the Prince of Darkness, the works of darkness. So all I'm saying is that it's very simple to understand the words in the story of Jesus if you just try and understand that what we're talking about is what happens to the light in the truth and the light. Well, the sun is the light of the world. Well, what happens to it? Well, if you try and enlighten people, then you're acting like God's son. You're trying to bring light into the world. They'll throw you into prison. And if you are a brilliant scientist and you figure out how to cure AIDS or cure some terrible disease or do something that's going to help the human family, the governments of this world will immediately arrest you, and you'll be found in an alley with a bullet in the back of your head, because the governments of this world do not want the people educated. My God, we got enough problems with people questioning stuff already. And with all the dark stuff that's coming out about the corruption of the human race, my God, we've already got enough problems without somebody going out and starting to tell people how the world really works. And finally, starting to wake people up so that now populations are saying, oh, I see now what was going on. Now I see it. Right. It just dawned on me why the governments are so corrupt. Why? Because it's just a business. It's only a business, like the mafia says. Well, we like you, but we got to kill you. Why? Because it's a business. It got nothing to do with personal. And so the world that we live in is one big business. It's a business of life. And so we have a religious business, we have a military business, we have a governmental business. The whole world is a business, Mr. Beale, like the movie said.
Right.
The whole world is a business. Somebody's got to run this planet. And the people who are running this planet don't want you in their way because you're ignorant and ill-informed and you just get in the way. They know what they're doing and they don't want you in their way. So they keep you in the dark. Make sure you got plenty of alcohol on every corner, liquor store on every corner. Make sure you got plenty of drugs, drug donation. Make sure all the people are on drugs and alcohol, and make sure their lives are miserable and they're broke and they can't pay for their rent. They don't have money for their bills, and they have to worry each day just to stay alive and pay their bills. So they stay out of the boss's way. They stay out of the way of the masters who run our planet. And so they know that there's going to be a lot of people who are going to be poor and want to stick together and do something. So they gave the world something called socialism, communism. Communism was supposedly an opening for the poor people of this world to come together and band together to do something about the darkness that we're in and all the corruption. So it was called socialism. And the socialism is all the common people of the world getting together to fight against the corrupt politicians and the bankers and all the big shots. But what people don't realize is that the socialism was founded, financed, and organized by the Rockefellers, by the international banking cartels of Europe. They're the ones who founded the world socialist movement. So all you'll see is the poor people out in the street with their plaques and their signs talking about socialism, and we need to overthrow the government, and how the Democratic Party is talking about we need to kill the president and he needs to be thrown out and charged with crimes and kick him out of Washington, D.C. Why? Because the poor people, the poor want him out of here. No, in point of fact, the poor people voted for him. And so the socialist movements are actually financed by the Rockefeller Brothers Trust Fund. If you go back into history and find out, the Soviet Union was financed by the Rockefellers, the Rothschilds of Europe, the Warburgs of Europe, of England. The international banking cartels financed, organized, and directed the Soviet Union. They're the ones who founded the Soviet Union and paid for the Communist Party to come into life. And so that's bringing light into the world when people see that. And finally, now they begin to see, oh, I see. The Democratic Party is nothing but a financial master plan to rip off the people of this world, thinking they're doing it for the poor people. No, what they're doing is they're keeping you poor and ignorant. That's why they don't want people coming around talking about what's really going on in world politics and how this government actually in fact works.
What's really great about it, though, is once you get beyond looking at how the communism and all of that was organized by certain elites, guess what? The extreme opposite of that. Every one of these things that they say were right-wing movements that were quite extreme, that were fascistic or whatever, almost all of them, if you look hard enough, you find, guess what? The Fords, the Carnegies, the the DuPonts, all backing these people.
Yeah, exactly.
It's amazing that it's like, almost as if they got together and had a meeting, Jordan. Not saying that they did, but I'm saying it's almost as if the big families on the planet got together and said, look, we need to divide up the left and right wing part of this and give people the illusion that they're resisting on one side or the other depending on which way the wind blows. And they give it to you in these self-destructive insanities on the extremist point of view. And one way or the other, you're tugging at a rope thinking you're fighting an enemy, but what you're really doing is backing yourself over a cliff.
That's exactly right. And that's why, and the basis for that kind of thinking, for this kind of political understanding, is the fact that man cannot move on this earth without two legs. He cannot do any work without two arms. You can't see very well without two eyes, two ears to hear correctly. So man cannot move around the earth without his two legs. Birds cannot fly without two wings. They can't do it with one wing don't work. You have to have two wings operating together, a left wing and right wing. And so we now know that this is how the world is actually being able to be moved. People in high powerful positions can move this whole world. Why? They can either move it to the left or to the right. The left is always the communistic, and the right is always the nationalistic. It's the what we call the National Socialist German Workers' Party, Nazis, or the Communist Party, which is the Democratic Party. And so it's been known that you can't go anywhere if you don't have two of everything. So if you're going to walk, you need two legs. And you can't walk on a glass surface with oil on it. It's just not going to work. You need friction. So if you can't walk on a marble or a glass floor if it's got oil on it, why? Because there's no friction for you to walk. You need two different legs, and you need friction for you to walk and for you to move. So if the international bankers want to move the world towards something, they will cause friction. International friction or international strife and wars. It will cause kinds of wars between people, between religions, between governments. They are financing, organizing, and directing all of this wars and all the tragedies. And this is why even the Masonic order has the term ordo ab chaos, order out of chaos. Order out of chaos. And this is why when I was a kid in school, when somebody would say something in high school and junior high, get a life or wake up, it meant that you were ignorant and ill-informed. You need to get an education. And so they make a television show. What was it called? In the 50s, that TV show was, Get Smart. Yeah, that's what it was. Get Smart. Well, in high school, for me, when I was a kid in high school, get smart. Somebody told you to get smart and implied, go get an education. Wake up, you're stupid. You're ignorant. Get smart. And so they make a television show in the 50s called Get Smart. And in Get Smart, there are two sides. There's an evil side and there's a good side. And what are the two sides in the television comedy, Get Smart? One was called chaos, and the other was control. Mm-hmm. Why? Because that's how you control people, is you cause chaos. Because if you walk on glass with oil, there's no friction. So you've got to have friction. You've got to have people fighting each other. Have a man fighting his wife. Have children fighting their parents. Have governments fighting each other. Everybody's got to be against somebody else because you've got to have two legs to walk on. You've got to have two wings to fly.
Well, see, I want to run a third idea by you here. And the reason is because we're in the third dimension, and I see the triangle, the equilateral triangle, as something that is extremely important. And I'll tell you why. You said you need two eyes to see. Well, you don't need two eyes to see, but here's the thing. When you do have two eyes which work equally well, what they essentially do from two different perspectives, if they are working well, they create an image in your mind that allows you to know the depth, that allows you to know the distance. This is triangulation. In order to walk with those 2 feet like you were talking about, what is achieved there? It is balance that is achieved because one pressure can actually mediate the other, and this is why there needs to be two things in order to create a third effect. Now, what's fascinating to me is this idea of control and chaos, and the fact that it seems like the argument, no matter what you're talking about, whether it is religion or it is politics or anything else, is really between exactly how much control and chaos you want. One of the sides of the equation generally presented has a lot of control in it, Jordan. It just does. It controls everything almost because it just runs everything. The other side of it asks for a lot of chaos. Now, here's the fun part about that is between these two things, the result that's created is struggle. And the struggle is generally more between the people who are attempting to navigate this than against the people that are actually running the program. So what I find relevant here is that there is a triangulation at all times. That triangle, which does become a pyramid when you bring it into the third dimension, and also, don't forget, we're in the third dimension, just seems to make sense. And you say to yourself, well, this is how balance is achieved from two different perspectives that are not in and of themselves correct, but when you take a look at them and bring them together and have them work properly, you can see the depth, and you can see the distance, and you can see the reality, and you can see in 3D. So what's really, really strange here is that, again, going back to astrotheology, the sun and the moon, they do this dance across the sky, and each of them owns half of the day. They just do. 12 hours over your head is lit. 12 hours over your head is dark, effectively. On balance, the two things, because there is a break from the sun, and the sun is essential, but also the break from the sun is helpful. It allows things to cool down, because if the sun just continued to pulsate on something and never moved off of it, right, it would actually, it would create life, but then it would create death too. So it seems like the stars know what to do. It seems like the planet knows what to do. The question then becomes, why does it seem like there is so much darkness intentionally over the planet? And by darkness, I do mean ignorance. I do mean the ugliness, man's inhumanity to man, man's irresponsibility to the planet, man's cruelty to animals of lesser intelligence, man's lack of an ability to take care of himself. All really rooted in ignorance, which is that darkness, right? How is it that is out of balance when it seems as though the stars, it seems as though the lessons, it seems as though the religions and all other things get the message about the balance, but men are not getting it? Why is that happening? Is that too broad of a question, Jordan?
Yeah, it's a very good question, because mankind's not getting the truth because they don't want the truth. There's a very big dimension to this, and that is your desire to know. Most people do not have a desire to know. They're too busy trying to earn a living to pay their rent, utilities, and stay alive and eat and protect their families. So they don't have time to worry about and think about and sit and study all day ancient theologies, ancient religious beliefs, and political philosophies, and how the world really works. Most people do not have that kind of time. I do. I have devoted my life since I was 19 years old, knowing full well that in my later years I will have nothing. I will not own anything or have anything, because I'm going to spend my entire life reading and studying and looking at the world I live in. And I already realize that while I'm doing that, I'm not making money. I'm not out there taking care of my family. I'm not out there taking care of me and making money and building a bank account. I'm out there doing what I want to do. And it's going to cost me. I'm not going to be able to do the things other people and other men can. I'm not going to have a family. I'm not going to have a home. I'm not going to have what the other people want. I'm not going to be able to do that. But what I do want, and I will pay for, whatever it costs, is I want the knowledge. I want to know. I want to not believe anything. I want to know the facts of life. I want to know where things have come from, what the words mean, and how the people in power got in power, and who gave them the power, and who's ultimately in charge of the earth, And who wrote the laws? We're all under law? Yeah, well, who wrote the law? What law? And then when you talk about God, God to me is simply dog spelled backwards. What do you talk about when you say God? Define your terms. Define what you mean. So many people talk about things they think they believe, but when you ask them privately, explain to me what you mean by heaven, or explain to me what you mean by hell. Most people have no idea in the world how to explain anything because they don't understand it to start with. It's just something they've learned because they were born and raised into the environment. And where they were born and raised, they were raised in a particular culture, and so that particular culture impacts their thinking. And that today we got all kinds of people around the world who believe that what they think and what they believe is the truth, and everybody else is wrong, which in point of fact is just the opposite of actual history. What most people believe is the truth is not the truth. It's a made-up story, and you bought into it because the story was made up before you were born. Before your grandmother was born, there was already a story, and the people of the world had already bought the story and had already promoted the story. And so hundreds of years later, you come into the world, and you're born as a baby into that culture, and the stories are like Hitler said, if you tell the same story over and over again, eventually people will begin to understand it and believe it. And so if you continue for 1,000 years to keep talking about somebody who died on a cross, a man who died on the cross and who rose again from the dead, etc., and he was God's son, you keep doing that for 1,000 years, and eventually down the line, you're going to be born and you're going to be brought into it, and you're not going to know anything more about it than the people who are telling you about it. This way the blind lead the blind, and both fall into the pit. And so that's what I realized a long time ago, and I knew it was going to cost me, and so that's what I did. I wanted to know, and I got what I wanted. I wanted to know, I wanted to have the knowledge, and I did. And I studied, and I continually sought after individuals I felt had something of value to say, and I would go to their lectures, I would go to the teachers, I would write letters to important people around the world, and eventually I started to begin to see how the world actually works after 60 years. And it's really and very encouraging for me to see young people starting to wake up, because maybe, possibly, and I've said this before, I don't believe there is a light at the end of the tunnel. I think the light at the end of the tunnel is a train coming. But it very well might be that the world is changing, and that it very well might start to begin to change for the good, for the betterment of the human race, when more people come into the light, turn on the light, and come into the light of this world and enlighten your mind. Read and study and understand and question. Because like I said, too many people, in America especially, are too interested in trying to earn a living, to pay their rent and pay their bills. They don't have time to sit down and study. Well, I did, and so I'm trying to give you this kind of knowledge. I'm trying to explain it to you. What I have paid my whole life to learn, I'm trying to teach you, and I'm doing it the best I can. I'm trying to explain to you that all of the world's stories that you have been told are all based on far more ancient mythologies and ideas that have come down through thousands of years of mankind. As I said in one of my videos, that mankind has always had these questions about who we are, where do we come from, where is God, if there is a God, what's going to happen to us when we die, where do we come from before we were born. And so when mankind began to ask these kind of questions, there were no answers. The universe didn't give you any answer. So we had to sit down and start thinking about it and come up with a logical understanding of to the questions that we're asking. Well, logically, we begin to understand where man comes from and the procreation of the human family. And then we begin to see how intellectual enlightenment is always being tried to stamp out people who are educated are not very much appreciated in the society we live in because they know things you don't know, and they're not about to take part in what you're doing because they know better. And so if they're not taking part in what you do and what you live in, then you don't like them. They're not like you. So therefore you turn against them because you don't support them. You don't have anything to do with them. Why? Because you don't like them. They're not like you. And that's why the politicians know that. Politicians realize give the people what they want and they will support you. Tell them what they want to hear and they will like it and then they will support you. If you tell them the truth, they're not only not going to support you, you may be assassinated. You may wake up one morning and find out you've been killed because you know too much and you're causing too many problems among the people. The national leaders are not appreciative of you trying to wake the people up. They don't want the people woken up. That's what we've been feeding them, alcohol and drugs and movies and entertainment and ball games and all the rest of this crap. We've been trying to keep the people occupied and stupid and ill-informed and unread. Purposely, we designed a school system that does not only not teach people, but it actually keeps you stupid. And so that's why Bertrand Russell said many years ago, if you want to be wise and intelligent, go to the library and sit and read. If you want to be stupid, go to school. They'll teach you what stupidity is. You'll come out and you won't even know, you won't understand nothing when you come out of school. Why? Because we've designed the school to do just that. We designed it to make sure that if you go to school, you'll come out ignorant, ill-informed, unread, dim-witted, and totally confused. That's what we do in school. Unless there's an individual that comes into the picture who doesn't want to go with the regular crowd. He doesn't want to follow the crowd. He wants to do his own thinking. Well, that's the kind of person that gets in trouble. We don't want you on this company. We don't want you in this company. We want a team player. This is a citizenship, and we run a tight ship. And so we want you to be a team player. You go along to get along. You get it, mate?
Oh, of course. And the interesting thing is, when you speak out of school, right, it usually means you said something you shouldn't have, and you said something that you didn't know anything about, you weren't supposed to say. It's an interesting thing. Or you knew
too much.
Or you knew too much. That's the interesting part about that. But when I hear the word school, I got to tell you, Jordan, I also, everything seems to go back to water, which is another thing, too. We talked about the sun and that being the essential of life, but water's another one. There's nothing on this planet which lives that doesn't require water in one way or another, right?
That's right.
And there's virtually nothing on this planet that doesn't contain water in some way or other.
That's right.
So water is important too. And here's the thing about the school. When I hear the word school, what do I think of is big collectives of fish, which, they do swim in the same direction. And look, a school of piranha is pretty scary, yes, indeed. But a school of bluefish, kind of dumb, and they bite each other even because they see shiny things in the water, and it's really just that way. But you see, a school of fish means that, there are some fish at the head of that school, if you will, the head of that class, and they might see exactly which direction everybody's going in. But the majority of the fish in the school of fish, and that's literally what a grouping, very much like a grouping of crows is a murder, sheep are a herd, so on and so forth, right?
That's precisely right. And that's why we are called fish, because we bet. You bought into something, you bet. And so we're fish, and that's why we go to school. And school goes back to a Jewish word, shul.
Right.
And shul is a meeting place for the Jews in their worship of the shul or school. And so our school system is the educational system is to make sure you stay stupid. And if you start asking too many questions in college, you are kicked out. Okay, how much money you paid, you're out of here. Why? Because you're causing all the other students who are happy drinking their beer and going to the sex parties and watching the football games, you're causing the students to become concerned and start asking questions. And now we got problems in the class. We got problems with too many school kids asking too many questions that we can't answer. We don't want to answer. And you're the one that's causing them to wake up and ask these questions, so we don't want to hear from you anymore. We've had enough of you. So you're kicked out or thrown into jail, or you'll lose your license to be a doctor if you're telling people things they're not supposed to know. And so people who want to do something to help their fellow man, today's world, you will go to prison and you will probably be taken out. You'll probably be removed from the world.
Well, but
they'll find your body someplace.
See, but here's the thing about that school of fish, as we're about ready to go to break here, and I actually found an interesting email that I want to run by you. I forgot about it because we hadn't done the show in a couple of weeks. That a listener sent in that we'll address in the next hour. And if anybody else that wants to, by the way, we do take input and questions in the chat room, or if you email them to me. I forgot to mention that at the top of the show. But we do take questions during this time when Jordan is on with me, and I'm going to get to an interesting one. But here's the thing about that school of fish. That I can't get away from. I realize it comes from the word for shul and all that, but I can't get the school of fish out of my head, Jordan. And you know why? Because the majority, and I do mean the overwhelming majority of the fish in the school, again, do not see anything except the tail of the fish in front of them.
That's
mean, that's how much more of a metaphor do you need? For the word. I mean, I'm not saying you, Jordan. Obviously, you've got a million of these sorts of observations, but it's just, to me, that this is the one that stands out, and I think it's a fair one to mention. That when it comes to school and being in a school, that is very much like those fish all grouped together, who only a very few even have an idea where it's going. Only a very few know anything that's actually happening, because in front and behind the rest of them is another fish, and like I said, even if they've got their eyes open, all they're seeing is the tail end of a fish just like them.
That's exactly right, and that's why we say if you're not the lead dog, for you the scene never changes. You don't know where you're going. You just follow the other dog's butt in front of you. You don't know where you're going. Just keep pounding the pavement and running like all the other dogs, and follow the lead dog. The lead dog is the one that's seeing in the future. He's out in the front. And so all you have to do as a dog is just follow. Just wherever the lead dog goes, that's where you go. Because if you're not the lead dog, for you, the scene will never change.
True enough. But as we go to the break here, Jordan Maxwell is with us, and you go to jordanmaxwellshow.com if you want to continue on with even anything that's been evoked in this conversation. But astrotheology is the main focus, despite the fact that it does tie to just about, everything apparently, when you start to break these things down, because the metaphor and symbols, they are everywhere. So stick around. The Ocelli Effect will be back after a short break.
WallStreetWindow.com. Gold, silver, the stock market. WallStreetWindow.com. The brilliant author of The War State brings you exclusive reports about the big changes upcoming in the markets. WallStreetWindow.com.
Perhaps you're invested deeply.
Perhaps you're not in deep enough. Maybe you're thinking about getting started. WallStreetWindow.com. Michael Swanson, the brilliant author of The War State, understood these trends professionally for many years, and now he gives you the benefit of his knowledge. WallStreetWindow.com. Go there now. Go there now. Go there now.
A reminder that this is the Voice of America broadcasting worldwide.
Transistor Radio.
Warning, warning, warning. Uncle, the podcast.
The Ocelli Effect.
Porkins Policy Radio with Pierce Redmond
on Ocelli.com. News, entertainment, and more. You will learn something, children's. Ocelli.com.
Chuck Ocelli.
The second hour of the Ocelli Effect begins now, originating from Ocelli.com, but like I say, heard in a variety of other places. Anyway, this particular Moon Day or Monday, we do have Jordan Maxwell with us, and if you want to continue on with your education after this show, or, hey, if you want to pause it and go over there now, you can do that too, because you're listening to it on a podcast, whatever, through your podcatcher du jour, that's just fine too. You go over to JordanMaxwellShow.com. Now, you got to put all three of those words together in one, JordanMaxwellShow.com. That's how you do it. You get to the only website, and I do mean the only website, that is Jordan Maxwell's. His face, his name, in a lot of other places, but truth is, that's the only one that's his, JordanMaxwellShow.com. There is the Research Society over there, which I am a member of, and I urge you to join. There is the donate button over there, which obviously, if you appreciate the information that Jordan has brought you over the years and are able to do so, Jordan would appreciate something from you. And Jordan didn't ask me to say that. I'm just telling you. Okay, bottom line. You can email Jordan. You can look at the public section. You can hear a couple of shows and take a look at some other interesting articles. But you get deep into the Research Society, and you can go for deep dives on things like religion, money, government, language, and exactly how all these things interact in the grand equation of the world around you. And also religion and astrotheology, which is the main focus of what it is we're discussing tonight. Now, we've gone in a couple different directions, and it's about to get even more diverse, I think, because I have one email that I'm going to read to Jordan here during the course of this time. We may have a caller join us via Skype somewhere in the next little while, but meanwhile, back to the discussion with Jordan, because hey, you know what? We've only got just so much time left here on this particular Monday night. Jordan, where do you want to go next? Do you want to go with the email, or would you like to continue on with the thought that I sort of interrupted in the first hour, or what do you think?
Well, I think you're the host. You tell me. I'll put it on you. Okay,
fair enough. Jordan volleys back to Chuck. Okay, cool. You know, I think of it like a tennis match, like, whoop, I served the ball to you. What are you going to do? He volleyed it back.
I put the ball back in your court.
You put the ball back in my court, and, of course, there's a lot to be said about that. But you got to tune into the first hour to hear about the ball in the court. And okay. Anyway, an interesting email here from Roderick, okay? And I say this because I think he's the only Roderick I've ever heard from, who has listened to the Special Dogmatic Theology series, appreciates that, is very grateful that we did that series one after the other, and is happy to see that the majority of them have made it to YouTube. Yes, I know there's still a couple that have not gotten up there because YouTube restricted my ability to do things briefly, but I believe I may be able to get those up soon. Okay, just so you guys know. Anyway, what else? What does he say? Oh, right. He was listening to a show where I had said some things that he wanted me to run by you. But you weren't on that show. And they tie to just about everything you were talking about. Okay, let's see here. Okay, you know what? The essential question is, because I ended up saying that that quite frankly, every time I have a belief in my lifetime, I look back on it and I realize that once I get to know something that that contradicts that belief, you know, my beliefs are just things that I don't really know about. And I said that beliefs were dangerous. And I said that, quite honestly, it is beliefs that get people killed out of ignorance because they are very much based on ignorance. And that there was a great difference between belief and knowledge. And they wanted me to run it by you. So they're asking me if I would have you give a similar explanation, because I gave a whole half-hour thing on this one night where there is a huge difference between belief and knowledge, or knowing. Like you said, you wanted to know things, you didn't want to believe them. And you make that distinction as well. So they are asking basically, Jordan Maxwell, tell us, what is the difference between belief and knowledge?
Well, I think it was probably be pretty obvious what we're trying to say in talking about those two subjects, belief and knowledge. I think it's pretty obvious. The idea being is if you believe something, you don't know for sure. You're looking, you're understanding the best you can and the best you can come up with. And we say that, well, this is what I believe. I don't know if it's true or not, but this is what I believe. Well, that's a subjective opinion. That's what you believe. It doesn't mean that's the truth because, well, what is the real truth about any subject? Well, I don't know, but this is what I believe. So the idea being is if you have a belief, it doesn't mean it's true. It just means that's the way you see things. And the way you view it, that's your view. And so that's why the Founding Fathers said we all have a right to have our own view. And that's what I've said so many times. I think the world has a right to my opinion.
Right.
And I think that my opinion is not based on necessarily something I've read or heard or been told when I was a child, but my opinion is based on things which I have actually with my own eyes seen. And with my own life, I have been involved in things which I have been taught because of those experiences, what the real bottom line truth is about the world I live in. I have had too many experiences which were very frightening to me. Some of them were very dangerous and very scary. But I look back on all of my life and I now see that I have had to learn a lot of lessons the hard way because I have my own beliefs. I believed in Jesus. I believed in the church. I believed when I was a youngster. But as I began to grow older, I began to have questions. And the more I would question, the more I began to perceive that this is not very smart. You need to keep your mouth shut and don't have any questions. Well, I know that's the basis for tyranny. If you can't ask questions and you don't have any answers, then this is a basis for ignorance. And so I always wanted to know. I don't care what you don't like with me asking questions. I want to know. And so I realized that you have to do it on your own. Nobody's going to help you. You want to know. There's a lot of information out there. Just open your mind because your mind's like a parachute. It don't work if it's not open. So open your mind and realize for the first time in your life, because something you hold to be very important and very dear and very real may not be real at all. And so I ask people in the past, have you personally ever been fooled or lied to and you believe something that somebody told you? Have you ever been lied to and then found out later on that what you were told was not true? Has that ever happened to you? Well, of course that's happened. Everybody's had those experiences where you thought you knew something and it wasn't true. Well, then that implies that you are fallible, that you are human and can make mistakes. Right. And if that's the case, then how do we know what you think you understand now is in fact the truth? Maybe you made a mistake, and maybe somebody was very smart and very clever and deceived you, and you were young and you were impressionable as a child or as a young person, and you believed what you were being told, but there was no proof of it. You were just told, here's the way it is, son, and this is the way it is, and this is what you need to believe, and that's it. And so you go through your life believing that until one day at 80 years old, you settle down and for the first time you start thinking about your life that you've lived all your life and what you have believed about life. And now you begin to understand for the first time about government propaganda, lies, religious beliefs, and the schools and how they've kept you ignorant and ill-informed and lied to you and didn't tell you the truth, and all kinds of tragedies begin to come up in your mind. How much if you've been lied on this or that and you see it's a lie, what else have you been told that's not true? Then you begin to really go down what they call the rabbit hole, which I've done. I've already done that. And now I begin to see the real truth is the world we live in is filled with lies, deception, and corruption, period. And that's why so many young people around the world are on drugs and alcohol and turning to sex and alcohol and entertainments and loud music, etc. And so many have fallen into criminal activity because they have not been brought up correctly. The parents have not been able to raise the children correctly to show them what is real, legitimate, de jure, provable truth. And stay on their minds, stay on their heads to make sure that the children are continually in your care, understanding how the world works, what they can do, what they can't do, and why the world works the way it does. Well, see, parents don't know those things, so they can't teach their children. And therefore, the children grow up to be ignorant, ill-informed, unread, and ignorant. Then they have children themselves, and their children grow up to be ignorant, ill-informed, and uninformed. And my God, one day you wake up and there's 7.5 billion people on the earth that have an IQ of 40. And there are some people on this earth that are so incredibly intelligent that they're able to balance it out so that the handful of people are brilliant, putting together computers and computer programs for us to run government, to run the utilities, to run universities. Very, very highly intelligent, brilliant people. Does that mean they're good and they're holy and moral? No, it just means they're very bright and intelligent. And they are put to work by governments. Governments come in and they give you IQ tests when you're a kid. Why? Because the IQ test was designed as a tool in the hands of military. The people who run this world want to know who are the smart kids and who are the regular ignorant dummies. Who are the real smart ones? Because when we find some kid that's got an extraordinary intellect and we test him with an IQ test and we see this kid is smart, he picks up on stuff quickly, he's very, very bright, the way he analyzes things, we need to bring him in and give him a scholarship and bring him in and put him in the military. We'll hire him to work for the CIA and the NSA, National Security Administration. We'll hire him for the work, to put him to work for the U.S. government, because this kid's smart. Why? Because we know, because he's taken an IQ test. And so that's what the IQ test was all about, to separate the really brilliant children from the regular kids who are never going to go anywhere. They don't know from nothing. They don't care about nothing. They're just having fun drinking their beer and going to the ball game. Yeah. And they'll end up being, being regular, ordinary people who will go along to get along and do whatever they're told to do because that's the way everybody else lives. Right. Except for those handful of extraordinarily brilliant young people who are working for NSA and working for governments and underworld organizations and corrupt societies, secret societies, and they become the lawyers, they become the attorneys, they become the brilliant minds that manipulate the world. And so I understood this a long time ago, and I realized the only way I'm going to be able to do it is do it on my own by myself. Right. And so I educated myself because every day I spent almost every day of my life in a library somewhere, UCLA, County, USC, University, all kinds of theological seminaries, libraries, all sorts. I mean, I used to photocopy documents. I have boxes and boxes and boxes of photocopies of documents on all kinds of subjects, from government to war to how the secret societies operate, who prints your money, why do we have banks, and what is a bank? And then when you get into the dark history of banking and money and the underworld operations, the organized criminal syndicates out of Europe, and how they came by putting America together, and the people who founded this country, and who were they, and how did they do it, and where did they get the money. It's really quite a world. It's quite a story about the world we live in that most people have never bothered to even know about. And so I feel that I'm trying to educate my mankind, and by doing so, I can't kick the feeling that what I'm doing is trying to empty the Pacific Ocean with a cup. There's only one of me, and I'm trying to tell the people of the world to wake up, educate yourself, and start looking at the dark side of life. Start looking at the real, legitimate world you live in, and find out where these things have come from. That's where the real story is.
Right.
Find out where the idea of banks come from, money comes from. Then you find out that banks were dreamt up by somebody called the Knights Templar Masonic Lodge. The Knights Templars was a Catholic Masonic underworld organization. They're called the Knights Templars. Steven Spielberg made movies about the Knights Templars in the Indiana Jones series and the Star Wars. All of that deals with the Knights Templar, the Masonic orders of Knights Templars, gave you what you call today banking, international banking. And then what you start, now you see where the banking comes from. Well, now where does the printing of money come from? Now it gets interesting, because now you're getting into banking and law and money and how they own your body, and your body as a security on the New York Stock Exchange. It's a real dark world we live in, and people have no idea in the world what's really going on. At almost 80 years old, I'm getting so tired of talking after 60 years. I don't know how much longer I'll be able to do what I do. That's why I want to leave a legacy, a website, Jordan Maxwell Show, so that people can go on. And when you go on my website, Jordan Maxwell Show, there's a whole website. We're changing. I'm having to, my webman is changing the website within the next 2 weeks. We're having to change the website because when you go on my website, you will see a large, a large opening, and it's a video I did. But there's more to that website. Scroll down underneath of that video. Scroll down and you will see a massive website. And then you will also see a Jordan Maxwell Research Society website. That's a second website that I own, but you get it off of my home website, which is Jordan Maxwell Show. It's called Research Society. Click on it and join it, and then you will see all the documents, audio, videos, documents, places to go, links to go, people to hear, all kinds of research I've been doing over the years about banking and government and churches and religion and the different institutions around the world, who owns them, where did they come from, and how you've been lied to and deceived. And most people have never seen that kind of information in their whole life. And it's all right there on my website under Jordan Maxwell Research Society.
Right. And as I said, I'm a member over there. So when you go in there, there is audio, video, books, articles, images, you name it, any type of media you can think of effectively that you can access for yourself to see exactly how this works for yourself, or to hear. You know how Jordan was talking about, I see what you're saying. Well, you can see what he's saying, but you can also actually see some things in there as well, including entire books and suggested reading and articles and relevant information to all of what is being explained in each section. By the way, there are many, many sections in there. So the last part of what Roderick had to say was that he felt as though it would rub Jordan Maxwell the wrong way if you said what you said on your show to me, okay? And so I'm just going to say it to you in short and see if it does. I don't think it will. I stated that beliefs were dangerous, and the reason why I said this is because I am far too often confronted by people who start sentences with, I believe. Their I believe sentences from on high, from politicians, from people that are in charge of things, seem to think that their beliefs are the primary reason for taking action. And I am not pleased by any of that, because a belief by its nature itself implies that you don't know, okay, what it is you're saying. You believe it, okay, and you can believe a lot of different things, okay. If you have no evidence of it, you're making decisions in the world based on something where you are admitting you do not have all the information automatically. And so I said this is a dangerous thing to do, to make decisions out of ignorance, because a belief automatically implies some ignorance. Now, I know that sounds a little rough, but it is the difference.
True.
Okay. So, I mean, does that rub you the wrong way, Jordan? Did I say something crazy there?
No, it's factually true. Okay. Factually correct.
That's
if you say, I believe. Yeah, well, I can sit in front of a master magician that's doing card tricks, and I see him doing all kinds of strange things as a master magician, and it's just spellbinding in my mind how he does this. How can he do that? It's spellbinding. But knowing intellectually, I understand, no, it's a trick. He's doing something with your mind. He's a professional at what he does, and he's causing you to think one thing and making a sound or making a comment or something, knowing full well he's leading your mind to buy into what he's doing. And all the time, that's why he is a master magician, because he's tricking you into believing something. And I've watched so many master magicians on television, and they are very good. The guys who are really good, they are phenomenal. How they can do things, there's no way to explain it, but there obviously has to be a way to explain what they were doing. And I've had people do that in my life. I've seen people come in and do things and show me tricks that I don't understand even today. Looking at it, I could not understand how they did it, but they did it. And they can do it every time, and it just blows my mind when I watch them do something. I've seen them do 4 or 5 times, and every time it works the same way, and I still don't understand it.
Well, how about this, Jordan? You know, you mentioned Steven Spielberg. They call those special effects that you're talking about, where they demonstrated all that stuff that you had just sub-referenced really quickly, you know, they call that movie magic, Jordan. So
that's right.
What is it that movie magic does? What is the phrase? You suspend disbelief. So let's break that down. Let's reverse engineer it real fast. To suspend means what? To stop something, put it on hold, at least temporarily, to suspend
it. That's right.
Mm-hmm. Right? So what is disbelief? Well, let's remove the dis from it. It is belief, right? And to disbelieve it is to not believe something, basically. I mean, that's about as basic as you can get, right? So you are stopping temporarily your ability to not believe something. So in a roundabout long-form way, you are allowing yourself to believe temporarily what it is you're looking at.
Yes, and that's why it is said, and I've heard this said before by teachers, that propaganda does not deceive you. Propaganda merely helps yourself. You're the one that bought into it. You should have had enough sense to know it was a trick to start with and start thinking of it, what you're seeing, in a relation to a trick. How would the trick work? But if you really believe what you just saw the magician do, it's just a magical trick. But there's got to be an answer to it. And there's a lot of programs on YouTube talking about how magicians do their tricks.
Right.
And it looks very, very good when he's doing it. Very interesting. But then when you see how he actually did it, then you say, oh, okay, now I see. Well, what do you mean you see? Well, now I understand. Now I'm in the light. My brain's been lit up, and now I see the thing for what it is.
You've lifted your suspension on disbelief, is what you've done.
Exactly.
And that's the key, though. Again, You're talking about magic. I say movie magic. It's the same thing. What did you just see, Jordan? Well, I just saw, pick a movie. I just saw a car crash. I just saw a guy get shot. You just saw that. No, you didn't. You saw the illusion of it.
That's right. See? You saw the illusion.
But for a moment, while you were watching it, you believed that's what you were seeing because you suspended your disbelief. This is the problem with beliefs, because all of the information says it is a trick. It is an illusion. It is something that is created by editing, special effects, or, let's just say intricate camera work. Doesn't matter what the trick is. Point is that one way or another, the belief is automatically based on at least partial ignorance to the subject. So when people are telling you, this must be done because I believe, they are literally telling you that an action must be taken because in partial or complete ignorance, they've decided this is what they want to see or know or whatever. Is that not an adequate explanation when you hear someone say, this is what must be done because I believe? No matter if it's a politician or somebody at the pulpit, it doesn't matter, your family, anywhere. When you hear someone say, I believe, so therefore this is.
Yeah, well, see, this is why I have always far more been interested in when I ask an adult who is highly educated and they say, all right, sit down and be quiet and let me explain to you what you think is happening, and then let me show you what's actually happening. And then I listen to them explaining what I already thought and what I already knew was happening. And then when they go into the background of where it really came from and what's really going on, then I begin to say, wow, I didn't know I didn't know all of these facts about life. That's why in the military you're told, you just are given an order. You just follow the order. Why? Because the superior above you knows things you don't know. And he's not stupid. And he's been told things that's actually going on that you are not being told. And therefore he's making his decision for what you have to do because he knows what's going on. You don't. And so that's why you're told, just do what you're told in the military. Why? Because the general is sitting quietly with some of the highest people in the world who are telling him what they're really doing. And he knows what they're really doing. And he knows what you need to do to keep yourself safe. So he will give you an order based on what his knowledge. He doesn't believe something's happening. He knows what's happening. And so that's why I felt the same way. I don't want to believe anything. I used to go to different churches and talk to different leaders in the community and different adults and ask them questions, hoping and wanting to have somebody say, here is the real truth, son. Sit down and be quiet and listen to what I'm going to tell you. And then lay it out for me so I can see it and for the first time understand how does a church work? How does the military and the army actually work? Where did the words come from? What are the ideas behind the military? All of this stuff, explain it to me so I can understand it. And every time, I'm telling you, every time you do that, if you're talking to an expert and they explain something to you, you will be amazed how much you didn't know, how much you did not know. You didn't know that the government was involved in certain things they never told you. You didn't know that they have paid money to do something and they were going to use you to do it, and you didn't know that. And you thought you understood everything perfectly well. No, it's what you believe. But that's not what's actually happening. And that's why I say all the time, the world does not work the way you think it does. Nothing does. No. When you get into banking, and here, federal bank examiners, as I have been in my personal company and in the personal company with just one-on-one, and have them explain to me how federal banking institutions in point of fact actually work. It's an extraordinary story. I thought to myself, my God, if the public could hear what he just told me and explain to me. I see it. I understand what he's saying now. But but the public would never be able to handle this. How come, and I remember one of the conversations was, how come you can lease a car, a brand new car, and you lease the car for a few years, and then you bring it back and you don't want it anymore. Now you can lease a new car. Well, what are you going to do with the other one? It's a nice car. You've just been driving it for 2 years. They're not going to be able to lease it anymore because you've already leased. This is a second-hand car. Well, what's going to happen with that car? Well, they're going to sell it somewhere else. Well, if they sell it, then they're not going to make up much money off of it. Well, they may sell it to Japan to melt it down and to make a ship out of it. So don't worry about how they're going to get their money back. They made a lot of money by your leasing it, but there's a lot more you don't know about commerce and banking and money. And so don't worry about it. Just stay out of the way and do your job, and don't worry about how the world runs, because the people in power, they know what they're doing. And for some reason, it just all seems to work every day. Everybody goes to work, everybody pays their bills, and everybody's eating, and we all just live from one day to the next, but the rich get richer and the poor get poorer. Why? Because there's a lot of knowledge you're not privy to know. And so that's why I do what I do. I'm trying to wake people to the idea that there's so much they've been told that they have no idea, that people go to church and they have no idea where the word church comes from. We've talked about that before. Church goes back to a word of a goddess in the Middle East called Circe. Circe was a goddess in the Middle East that was discovered by the Knights Templars and by the Crusaders back in the 12th and 13th century A.D. when the Crusaders went into the Middle East to war with the Islamic world and kick the Islamic world out of Jerusalem for the Pope and for Rome. And then when they came back, the soldiers, when they came back, like all soldiers, when they come home, they've learned a lot about the world they live in. So when the soldiers went to Jerusalem for the Pope and for the Catholic Church, they learned about how the women act in the Middle East. They learned about the drugs. They learned about the kind of alcohol. They learned about the assassins. They learned the politics and the thinking of the people. They learned all the magical stuff that's going on in the Middle East. These soldiers learned a lot. They came back very educated. And so they brought back with them, when they came back to Europe, the soldiers for the Pope, they were called the Crusaders. Well, they brought back a knowledge about how governments work in the Middle East, what the words mean, what the terms mean, and how to treat people and what to say and what not to say. And so they learned about a goddess named Circe. And Circe, when these Knights Templars came back to Europe, they ended up in Scotland. And from Scotland, they became known as the Scottish Rite of Freemasonry. The Scottish Rite were the Knights Templars who came back into Europe and then ended up in Scotland. So they became known as the Scottish Rite. And so the Scottish Rite Masons, who were the Crusaders, they realized and they understood about the worship of a goddess named Circe. And so in Scottish, Circe became known as Kirk, K-E-R-K. So if you're a Christian on Sunday morning in Scotland, you get up and you go to Kirk, K-E-R-K or K-I-R-K. Kirk. And then in English, Kirk becomes church, C-H-U-R-C-H. And so the goddess Circe became the goddess Kirk or the goddess Church. And so Mother Church was Mother Kirk, Mother Circe. And so, then when you go into the ancient belief systems of the Greek philosophers and the Greek mythology, Circe, Mother Circe, was able to, according to the mythology, Mother Circe in the Middle East was able to hypnotize people in mass. And she would bring them into her home, so goes the mythology story. She could bring people into her home and hypnotize them and lock the door behind them so they can't get out. And then she would eat them. She would feed off of them, and they would feed her because she would eat them. And she would take their minds away so they were brainless, and she would eat and feed off of them. That was the story of Mother Circe, Mother Kirk, Mother Church. And so that's what's happening today. Mother Church has the ability to hypnotize people en masse by the millions and bring people into her house. And then she locks the door behind them, meaning she locks off your exit. There's no way you're going to get out. If you're in the church, you're not leaving. And if you leave, you're going to be on your own and by yourself with no knowledge, no help, no nothing. And so the people in the church are locked in. Their minds are taken from them, and they cannot think for themselves. And now they're going to be eaten, and therefore they're going to financially give the money to the church, and the Mother Church will live off of them. She will eat them and live off of them. And so when you understand this history of religion, you begin to see it. Well, that's what the church is doing, and the church is a corporation. It's a company by the Knights Templars in the Scottish Rite. It goes back to an old ancient secret society that the Pope sent into the Middle East to take over Jerusalem. And that's why today churches are a corporation. They've made it into a business. And that's why the different churches are called denominations, like of 5s and 10s and 20s and 50s and 100s. Exactly. Money is divided into denominations. Well, so are churches, because that's money. It's a complete corporate operation, churches and religion. The churches are divided into denominations. But most people don't look at this kind of history because it's a very dark history that most people have no idea about, never heard about it, know nothing about it. And the priests who are at the top, like the Jesuits in the Catholic Church and the rabbis in the Hebrew religion, they're not about to tell the people the real story. I mean, I had one rabbi, a very high-ranking, very impressive, high-ranking rabbi, tell me many years ago when I asked him about these things. He said, "Give me a break. Everybody's got a religion. The Catholics have got a religion. Protestants got religion. Muslims have got a religion. I'm Jewish. I got a family to raise. I got to have a religion too. So I got a religion. So give me a break." And I said, "Well, yeah, but what about Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva? Was there a Brahma, Vishnu, or Shiva in actual life?" And he said, "I don't know if there was a Brahma, Vishnu, or Shiva. It was just a story." And I said, "Well, what about Father, Son, and Holy Ghost? Or Osiris, Isis, Horus? Or Father, Son, and Holy Ghost?" And it goes back to the triune gods of the ancient world. Right. And the rabbi said, "Give me a break. I got a wife and a family. I got to have a religion too." Yeah. And that's what I do for a living. I'm a rabbi. I teach people. I teach the Jewish people the religion of Judaism. But is it true? I don't know if it's true. I don't think it is true. It's just a symbolic story. But it doesn't matter. I have a job to do. I'm making money, so leave me alone.
You know what I find interesting about denominations, though, just before we get too far away from that. And, yeah, you're right about all these interesting things. And I got to say, it's very interesting. If somebody out there listening has a chance to really get close to somebody who is a true, scholar when it comes to the Torah, you really do want to talk to them because it is rather fascinating once they get beyond, the typical shul there. Okay. But something about denominations that strikes me is the Latin, because I got a message in my Skype when you mentioned church, and I just read it now regarding the Kirk and Circe, and this turning into church. Part of that I think traveled also through Germany at some point, and there might be a German twist which caused that to happen as well, along with the English, which is kind of fascinating because there's a lot more German in the English language than people seem to realize.
Oh yeah, boy, is there ever.
But anyway, that's a fascinating thing. But back to the back to this thing about denominations. I think about Latin. A nome, okay, is to basically say a name. And when you say name, people go, oh, yeah, that's like my name. Or no, to name or a name in Latin did not mean exactly the same thing that you think of it as in English. It was to literally describe the thing, too.
Yes.
Like when you named something, you were naming it because that is its name. Now, I know that sounds...
And that's the way you're interpreting it.
Yeah, it's
You're
not
just
a
putting
name. It was
putting
just...
words to it to try to describe something, and then that becomes its name.
Right, exactly. And that is really what that word name implies, and that's where it comes from. Okay, so a denome, D, what does that imply? You are taking it away. Now, that's the fascinating thing. Something that is named something that is in a denomination is now in a grouping where it is detached from what it actually is. Even further, so the more denominations you have, the further detached they are altogether from the original thing. I always found that fascinating when it came to denominations of money because, the more bills you have, usually the less money you have. It's kind of an interesting thing. People have lots of small bills, and those float around in much higher quantities. The more the denominations are split up, Jordan, whether it
You're
is
right.
money
That's
or right. So it's kind of interesting that there are so many different ways to sort of decode this, but it's right there. It's right there again. And Latin, why do I bring up Latin all the time, which is another question that happens during these discussions? Very simple. The legal profession seems to use it. The medical profession seems to use it. Your governments use it. It does appear to me to still be one of those universally accepted languages, even though they say it's a dead language. So,
That's right.
To me, there are a lot of clues that are still in there, based on if you can just reckon with the most basic senses of what Latin really is. And it's not like our language exactly. It's really not. And when you see some of the things that are named in certain ways and some of the words that have survived in not just English, although English is the primary example of everything sort of thrown into a blender, you've called it a designer language, in fact, Jordan, which you're absolutely correct. But when you take a look at German, when you take a look at French, when you take a look at Spanish, when you take a look at Portuguese, the Latin influence on all of that is profound. And English too, but English is a weird thing. It's like something else, and again, the meanings, the truth of the thing itself is sometimes hidden in a word that we simply utter without even thinking. Which again is an interesting metaphor that the language in and of itself promotes ignorance,
Confusion.
and confusion.
Yeah, and I remember reading a long time ago in the library that the word Latin was a word that was applied to the planet Saturn.
Mm-hmm.
Saturn was called Latin. Saturn, the planet Lord of the Rings, was called Saturn. We call it Saturn. Saturn was referred to as Latin. And, of course, the Saturn is a divine principle in the Latin religion. In the Roman Catholic religion, they're worshiping the planet Saturn today. The Jewish people are worshiping Saturn. On Saturn's day, they go to Temp El, and El was the name of the planet Saturn in the Phoenician Canaanite system. In the ancient world, God was called El, E-L. And so if you went to his home once a week, you'd go to his home to show respect for God, and God was El, you would go to Temp El. And Temp El, the Jews go to Temp El. Mm-hmm. And the Jewish Temp El was the house of God. The God is El, E-L is Saturn. And this is why the Jews go to Temp El on Saturday. Friday night, 6 o'clock, to Saturday night, 6 o'clock is Saturday. So the Jews go to Temp El on Saturday, Saturn's day. Right. So it has to do, the Jewish religion is based today not like it was on times before, but based on today. The Jewish religion is basically based on the planet Saturn, Lord of the Rings. That's why the Jews in Hollywood still making movies about their God, Lord of the Rings. And of course, Saturn is the Lord of the Rings in heaven. And in Lord of the Rings, one of the last movies in that series was called The Two Towers. The Two Towers, the Lord of the Rings, the Jewish God, the Lord of the Rings, and Two Towers. Are we talking about New York, the World Trade Center, the Two Towers? I think you might want to look into that and see the connection between the occult significance of Lord of the Rings, the planet Saturn, and the Two Towers in New York, Jachin and Boaz. It's a real dark story that's been unfolding for a long time. And most people have no idea, couldn't care less, have never looked into it, and have no concept in their mind what was really going on in New York and why it's called the Empire State. It's the state of the new Roman Empire, the Empire State. And the Two Towers were actually Jachin and Boaz. And look up these words, look up this whole subject. Just go on my website and join my research website. You will find a lot of stuff there you've never heard before. It's been there in your face all along. You just never knew. No one ever told you what was really going on. And I'm trying to do that now.
Right. And you know what's really fascinating is, you want to talk about something that's really actually been in your face your entire time. What is one of the first things that you have to learn, when you go to school anywhere, or when people are just trying to teach you about the world around you? Well, what day is it, Jordan? It's an interesting thing. And Sunday, well, that might be the day of the sun. Okay, so Monday, that's Moon Day. All right, fine. Tuesday is Tears Day. Now, that's a little odd there because there's this god of death which comes around on Tears Day. Wednesday is more like Woden's Day. Thursday is Thor's Day. Friday's Friar's Day. Saturday, is Saturn Day. Right on your calendar is the representation of various esoteric symbols. And there it is right in front of you. Why are the days ordered as they are?
Why is Saturday the last day of the week, and the first day of the week is Sunday?
Right. Why is that?
Because you have the Old Testament was the last day of the week, and the New Testament, as Christianity takes over the world instead of Judaism, takes over the world, and now Sunday begins a new week. Why is it 7 days in a week? It goes back to the constellation of Pleiades. Pleiades had 7 bright lights in the constellation of Pleiades, 7 bright stars. That's why today we have 7 days of the week, and the Jews celebrate the Judaism with the menorah, with the 7 candles. The 7 candles are the 7 lights of the Pleiades, the constellation in the sky. All of this is known in history. If you go into the library and sit and read for 20 years, you will find out a lot about religion you've never known before, and why things are the way they are and where these ideas have come from. And so in conclusion, since we only have a few moments left, I would say, go on my website to Jordan Maxwell Show. Anything that's out there that doesn't say those 3 words is not mine. Jordan Maxwell Show is my website. Other people are using my name out there on the website, but it's not mine. So don't think you're contacting me or dealing with me. No, If you're not on Jordan Maxwell Show, you're not dealing with me. Go on my JordanMaxwellShow.com, and you will see another website, which is a research website. It's called Jordan Maxwell Research Society. Click on the Jordan Maxwell Research Society, and you will take you to the place where you join that research society. You have to join it. And the reason why is because I'm telling you stuff that could get me in trouble. And I don't want to get in trouble by talking to the public, and that's what the government's watching me. to see what I'm going to say to the public. But if I put it in that joining thing, now it's in private. And the government has nothing to say of what I say in private.
It's like the Jordan Maxwell Show. Yeah, it's like the Jordan Maxwell Show private club. You don't have to abide by the same rules as when you're in public. So there you go. Yeah, it's like that. That's what the Research Society is. Go ahead.
Yeah, so that's why I have a Research Society website, Jordan Maxwell Research Society website. You click on that and you join. It's just a one-time contribution for a lifetime membership.
Right.
One time, just it helps me to keep the website going because I don't have any money. I live my life on donations, of which I don't get very many, and so I don't have the money to keep my website going unless I can find people to join my website who want to know. And then I have enough money to at least keep the website operating. I got to pay a webmaster. He's got to live too. So I got to pay a webmaster, pay to keep the website going, pay for people to use their credit cards. I got to pay for a lot of stuff. I don't have any money.
Right.
And so go on my website, the Jordan Maxwell Show, and join my website, join the research website, and you'll find a lot of information you will never ever see anywhere else in the world. I'm telling you a lot of things on that website you need to know about, and it's all there for you.
Right. And real quick, here's the thing, too. I want to make this extremely clear because, the other day, Jordan, when I was just surfing around a bit, and I was on your website, and then I entered some terms into a search engine and wound up somewhere else. I ran into a website that looked like it could be yours. It really did. It looked like it should be yours, in fact. And it had your picture on it. It had your name. But here's the problem. Unless it says JordanMaxwellShow.com, it's not Jordan's, even if it looks that way. Okay, so don't be fooled. The Research Society has a slightly different web address, but if you got in there, you know how you got in. But the fact is that the only public stop, the only place if you're looking to search this topic or any other that is related to a discussion you heard with Jordan on this show or any other place. Fact is, you have to go to JordanMaxwellShow.com. Some websites might even look like they're his. Really, but they're not. It's just that simple. I mean, but I wanted to stress that because I literally landed on a page where I was like, well, this looks really kind of nice, actually, but this isn't Jordan's. Nope. And it was not every website. Some of them are crap too, by the way. But there are so many people trying to use Jordan for their own purposes. To
make money off of my work and my name.
Yeah, or to put out their nonsense and put it under the banner of Jordan Maxwell. There's a lot of different motives here, but the fact is that there's only one place to go. For Jordan Maxwell, and it's his website. And if you email Jordan Maxwell on that website, you'll actually be emailing with Jordan Maxwell. If you make a donation, the money will actually go to him. You buy one of those streaming videos, you still have those up, right?
Yeah, I sure do.
Yep, there's some streaming videos.
But
there.
I would say don't email me on Jordan Maxwell Show and email me and say, Jordan, is this really your website? I'm telling you, you're hearing my voice. That's all I could. Hearing my voice on the radio saying, yes, this is my personal website that I own, period.
That's it. And it's the only
Jordan
one.
Maxwell Show.
And it's
don't email and ask me, is this really your website? Yes, it really is my website.
And it's the only one. There is not another.
Only one. Right.
It's only one is JordanMaxwellShow.com. And, of course, we do appreciate the time that Jordan has taken with us here at Ocelli.com. Don't mention my own website too often, but, again, the key here is really for your knowledge to continue. And if you are interested in the subjects that were covered tonight, JordanMaxwellShow.com is the place to go. It's just that simple. So, Jordan, thanks for doing this again.
No, thank you for allowing me.
And the fact is, guys, no matter who you are or where you are, first of all, I do truly hope that you are well. But also, remember this, I am merely Ocelli. All of you are actually the effect. Good night.